We had the Instagram scrubbing fiasco, all the rumors and all the talk of this offseason. A richly deserved extension for Kyler Murray. And the Arizona Cardinals do, guys, what they really had planned to do the entire time. They love him. They want him to be their quarterback for the foreseeable future. And now, Tom, they have paid him like it.
The Kyler Murray saga was a very long, arduous, and with all due respect, in my opinion at the very least, a very pointless exercise between Kyler Murray's camp and the Arizona Cardinals in a situation that I felt like was going to be an inevitability at some point in Kyler Murray's career. He finally got what he wanted. At the same time, he completely shot himself in the foot by doing so. So we're going to break all this down, what this means for the Arizona Cardinals, the winners and losers of this deal, and what this might mean for Lamar Jackson. Before we get to the content, I'm starting a fantasy football league with some of my followers on Twitter. So make sure you follow me on Twitter if you are interested in playing fantasy football with me. On top of that, we make shorter versions of this content and post it onto TikTok and onto my Instagram page. And now that we get all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Look, guys, I wanted to open up this video by saying I am not opposed to any player in the NFL getting the bag. I mean, if anyone is able to reach a level of success where they're able to set their families up for generational wealth and make millions and millions of dollars, and I have nothing but happiness for them. But at the same time, I'm just a guy that's really fascinated by business and markets, so I do like discussing whether or not specific deals made a lot of sense or not. And in this case, I wanted to take this from multiple perspectives, from where the Arizona Cardinals are coming from, where Kyler Murray's coming from, and how this affects the rest of the quarterback market. So the thing that's important to note here, guys, is the NFL is literally a cash cow. They're making more money each and every year. They're coming up with crazier and crazier ways to do it. That's the reason why Roger Goodell is considered to be such a good commissioner from the business perspective, not necessarily for some other stuff, but when it comes to making money for the NFL, Roger Goodell is crushing it for them. The reason I'm bringing this up is as a result, you're seeing players getting paid more and more substantially each and every year. So naturally, if you're a team that wants to make sure that they can lock down their quarterback for a fairly inexpensive price, the best way to do so is to pay him sooner rather than later, because as the market continues to go up, assuming the salary cap continues to increase, you could then expect your quarterback's contract to look better and better. A good example of this is when the Detroit Lions decided to pay Matthew Stafford following the 2017 season. Matthew Stafford got a 5-year, $135 million contract extension with $92 million guaranteed. This was right before the 2017 season, and it was considered to be a remarkable contract for him. But when he was traded to the Los Angeles Rams, it was one of the best contracts in the NFL. He was no longer the highest paid QB in the NFL. So as a result, the LA Rams were able to trade for him and win a Super Bowl with him because he wasn't getting paid so much relative to what the other players at his position were getting paid. So you have to bear that in mind as we dissect this Kyler Murray situation, because this all started very contentiously on the morning of the Super Bowl, if you remember, because I will never forget this day. I will always regret not waking up earlier to bring you guys news, because this was one of those days where we got so much news about so many players. I mean, you heard some horrible stuff about Adrian Peterson. You heard Carson Wentz was no longer going to return to the Indianapolis Colts. You heard rumors about Tom Brady potentially retiring. And then, of course, you heard that the relationship between Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals are at an odd place amid frustrations from both sides. Now, this was kind of surprising, but we got this originally from none other than ESPN's Chris Mortensen, who tweeted out the odd vibe, which is so funny whenever a boomer uses the word vibe, but I digress. The odd vibe between the Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray is indeed alarming. Murray is described as self-centered, immature, and a finger pointer. Per sources, Murray is frustrated with the franchise and was embarrassed by the playoff loss to the LA Rams and thinks that he is being framed as the scapegoat. Now, where's this headed? Well, despite the acrimony, the Cardinals expect things to calm down, and Kyler Murray is their QB. Select veterans hope to reach Murray on how he can handle adversity better. Coach Cliff Kingsbury is also self-scouting where he can provide better alternatives for the quarterback. So the reason why this is all coming up is the one thing that NFL fans love memeing the Arizona Cardinals for ever since the Cliff Kingsbury era is the fact that they will start out the season really freaking hot, and then they'll crash and burn whenever the season is about to end. I mean, a good example example of this is look no further than last year. The Arizona Cardinals started out the season with a 7-game winning streak. They even beat the LA Rams at SoFi Stadium in convincing fashion, might I add, a 37-20 win during week 4. But their win streak would come to an end in week 8. Now, of course, DeAndre Hopkins was dealing with an injury, and that obviously throws a gigantic wrench in the offense that the Arizona Cardinals typically run. And they did ultimately get faced with that problem a little bit earlier this year, because shortly after the NFL draft, we found out that DeAndre Hopkins is going to miss the first 6 games of the season due to a suspension because of alleged PED usage. So as a result, the Cardinals went ahead and traded for Hollywood Brown, and maybe that's going to fix things this year. But what I'm trying to say is this team has always been memed for their great starts and horrible finishes, and this past year was the best example of that. Despite starting out with a 7-game win streak, they eventually would end up losing 34-11 to the LA Rams, and it was done so in a truly embarrassing fashion. I mean, Kyler Murray had his worst performance to date in that one game, and it was even worse because it was on national television. But to remind you, Kyler Murray was 19 of 34 passing, 137 total yards, 2 interceptions, 4 yards per attempt, a 40.9 rating, and he wasn't able to rush either. He was so freaking bad that towards the end of the game, he refused to go back in. That's not a good look if you are the leader of a team. And I'm assuming that's what the media meant when they said that Kyler Murray needs to mature a little bit more. Well, ultimately, that's not what would end up happening. Kyler Murray would then go into the offseason. He would scrub his Instagram page of everything but 2 pictures, a picture with him and CeeDee Lamb, and then a picture of him winning the Heisman. And for the most part, you'd hear it back and forth. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins would joke about why Kyler Murray scrubbed his Instagram, saying that he just wanted to prepare to show new outfits. You had his agent draft this gigantic essay saying that Kyler Murray wants to get paid immediately, which I don't necessarily know if it was the greatest business decision, but if that's what he wants, if he wants the stability, that's his prerogative. But ultimately, none of that matters, because after all this tension, after a crazy offseason for both sides, Kyler Murray finally got what he wanted. I don't necessarily know if this is the best thing for him, but hey, it's still a gigantic sum of money at that. So according to Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport, we're going to go and show Ian Rappaport love in this instance. The Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray have now agreed to terms on a contract extension. Now, the amount Kyler's getting paid is insane. I mean, these contracts are getting crazier and crazier, and well, just take a look at this, man. According to Rap Sheet, Kyler is getting a 5-year contract extension worth $230.5 million with $160 million guaranteed. Now, look, I'm just gonna say that this type of contract was going to happen eventually. I mean, no matter what, you drafted this guy with the #1 overall pick. The moment you drafted him, your team has been on a consistent upward trajectory. So clearly at some point or another, this man is gonna get the bag. I mean, there's no question about that. The question was more about when and not if. And I actually give a lot of credit to the Arizona Cardinals for pulling this off. I know a lot of people are gonna say, yo, what the hell? He's getting paid so much money, because look at the breakdown Tom Pelissero gives us. He gets paid $30 million in the first year, $69 million over 2 years, and $106.15 million over 3 years. So this deal is slated to lock up Kyler Murray through 2028, so he gets 5 new years. Now, the crazy part about this is when you bring in averages and guaranteed money, because this offseason, we saw a lot of great quarterbacks getting paid a substantial amount of money. One of these quarterbacks just got paid just to get paid, and that's Deshaun Watson. So if you want to put things in perspective, Aaron Rodgers signed a $50 million average per year contract extension with the Green Bay Packers, and his guarantee was $150.8 million. Kyler Murray is in second place in terms of average per year with $46.1 million, with getting a guarantee of $160 million. Deshaun Watson's contract is a $46 million contract, fully guaranteed $230 million. It's such an aggressive move that sometimes I'm in awe that it happened. Nothing against Deshaun Watson, he's a remarkable QB, but to pay him that amount of money with everything that he's going through right now, that is just something that'll always shock me.
So Mike, about this contract, is it a good contract? Is it a bad contract?
Let me bring you guys a nice little example. During the 2020 NFL season, the Dallas Cowboys were playing chess with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott wanted a contract extension. The Dallas Cowboys were like, we don't really know if we're sold on you as our QB of the future. And I know I frequently post a meme on my Twitter page about the Dallas Cowboys cycle where, you know, they play hardball, then another team resets the market at the position, then they continue to play hardball with no contentions contingency plan, and then they pay the player more than they originally asked for, which is what's going to happen with Dalton Schultz, by the way, make no mistake about it. But we've seen this with the Cowboys over and over again. In 2020, they would franchise tag Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott would go ahead and break his leg during that season, and the following season, Dak would sign a 4-year contract extension for $160 million with $126 million guaranteed. So to put things in perspective, back then everyone was saying,
Oh my god, that's a gigantic overpay. Dak Prescott is getting paid so much freaking money.
and currently you could say the same thing about Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is the second highest paid player in the NFL technically in terms of averages. But as time goes on, and you're gonna see players like Joe Burrow needing to get a contract extension, Justin Herbert needs to get a contract extension, Tua is gonna be an interesting case based off of how he plays this year. And as time goes on, more and more of these players are gonna need contract extensions. This contract is just gonna look better and better. So currently, Dak Prescott's contract is the 7th highest paid contract for a quarterback in the entire NFL, which is very close to what Russell Wilson's getting paid, but Russell Wilson's also due for a contract extension. If you ask me, I think this is a great move by the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, pay Kyler as soon as you can. It's gonna look better as time goes on. Lock him in. I know it looks expensive now. It's gonna look cheap in the future because the NFL is just making more and more money. But let me tell you who this is gonna screw over. Lamar Jackson still hasn't gotten paid. So you're gonna see him getting a gigantic contract extension. If you ask me, he does deserve more money than Kyler Murray, just based off of the fact that he won an MVP, based off the fact that he actually won a playoff game. No disrespect to Kyler Murray, but in terms of achievements in the NFL thus far and statistical output, I'm not saying that Lamar Jackson's better than Kyler Murray, because I think they're two completely different quarterbacks. I think there's throws that Kyler Murray can make that Lamar Jackson can't make. I think Lamar's in a specific system that really helps him as well, but he's absolutely prolific. I think Lamar's gonna get paid significantly more as a result of this. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about this. Do you think Kyler Murray was overpaid, or do you think it was just the right amount? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.